Our topic work this week is going to be about the Vikings. So you can watch this video. I'll go through the slides. Feel free to pause it anywhere along the way. You can read along with me. The Viking raiders and invaders. Before you start, think about these questions. Who were the Vikings? Where did they come from? What did they do? When did they come to Britain and why? And what else do we know about them? So perhaps you could pause here, brainstorm some ideas, and think about what you already know about the Vikings. The Vikings arrived. So the Vikings came from the area of modern Scandinavian countries, which is Denmark, Norway, and Sweden. They set out in boats called longships to go Viking, which means to go traveling, looking for resources and land to claim as their own. The Vikings first arrived in Britain around AD 787 and in AD 793. They raided and pillaged the monastery at Lindisfarne in Northumbria. So you can see the route that they took, the arrows there, the blue, purple and orange arrows from Norway, Sweden and Denmark, making their way into the United Kingdom. And we've got a glossary over there. A longship is a long wooden narrow boat used by the Vikings. If you pillage something, it means that you steal goods using violent tactics. And raid is to suddenly attack a place. Raiders. The Vikings came to Britain looking for lucrative new items to steal and trade. Now the word lucrative means that they are quite valuable or expensive. In addition, they wanted land that they could take and claim as their own. They particularly liked to raid monasteries like the one at Lindisfarne. The monasteries were not very well protected and contained valuable goods like gold and jewels, imported foods, and other useful materials. A monastery is a religious place of worship. The Vikings also stole manuscripts and Bibles. These were sold back to the religious leaders who could not bear to see them lost or damaged. The Vikings went on to invade Scotland, and in time they began to settle and stay there. They were able to build up an army, and in AD 866 they captured the city of York. The Anglo-Saxon king, Alfred the Great, who became King of Wessex in AD 871, managed to force the Vikings out of the south of England, but this was short-lived. By AD 878, the Vikings had settled permanently in England, overran Wessex and forced King Alfred into hiding. The Vikings were here to stay. Next up is a Viking timeline, which I think you will need for activity 1. So when you do move on to your activities, you can come back to this video and pause it at any point in order to complete your timeline. AD 787, the Vikings first arrived in Britain. The Vikings attack from Norway. They attack the monastery. The following year, they attack northern Britain in what we now call Scotland. The Vikings capture the city of York. Wessex is the last Anglo-Saxon kingdom. Alfred the Great becomes King of Wessex. He drives the invading Vikings from the south, but they stay in the north and the east. By this time, the Vikings had settled permanently in England, overran Wessex, and forced King Alfred into hiding. King Alfred agrees to a treaty with the Vikings. Alfred keeps the west and the Vikings are given the east, which is later known as Danelaw. The Vikings establish rule over Scotland. The last Viking king of Jorvik, or York, Eric Bloodaxe, is forced out of York. King Sven of Denmark and his son Knut sail up the rivers Humber and Trent to claim the throne in Danelaw, and Ethelred, the Saxon king, flees abroad. King Sven dies, and Ethelred returns to rule England again. King Ethelred dies. His son Edmund Ironside becomes king for a few months until he also dies. Canute becomes king of the Danes and king of England. King Canute dies. His sons Harold Harefoot and Hardicanute share the ruling of England. Harold dies in 1040 and Hardicanute becomes the sole ruler of England. Ethelred's second son, Edward III, is invited to return from Normandy to become the King of England. Edward III was better known as Edward the Confessor due to his extreme piety. The last Anglo-Saxon king, King Harold, is defeated by William the Conqueror at the Battle of Hastings, and Norman Britain begins. The end.